Okay, so today I'm going to share my Instagram story with you, which is to say the story of how I became addicted to a photo sharing app for the iPhone, how I convinced myself that I was a photographer, and how I got connected with people around the world, and basically how this thing changed my life completely. So my story actually begins not here in Hong Kong, but in Atlanta, Georgia, which was 2.5 years ago. This is where I was at, and I was there working at CNN. I'd been there 10 years, and I was basically, enjoying life there, but I was really kind of sick of the daily grind. And so you see those cars here. This is like basically me every day, like an hour each way commute every day, and I was just like, I need a change. I need something to happen. So, as good fortune would have it, CNN decided to move me to this across the world to this magical universe called Hong Kong, which was really interesting because I had never been to Hong Kong before. In fact, I had never set foot in Asia, and so this was a life-changing experience, obviously. And when I got here, I was like, wow, Hong Kong. I'm experiencing this new place, and when I moved out here, I moved out first without my family. My wife and kids were still finishing school, and so I had this overwhelming need to share this experience of moving to a new place. And I didn't know anybody, and I didn't have any friends, and I wanted very much to connect back home with people. And so I was looking for a way to do that. In fact, before I moved out here, I bought my very first digital DSLR. And my intention was I'm going to blog, and I'm going to take all these photos, and I'm going to do something cool. And I never took my DSLR out of its box, basically, because I discovered something else. This thing, Instagram. So, for those of you who don't know, Instagram it's an app. It's an app for your smartphone. And of course, it's more than that, but essentially, right, so you can get it for your iPhone, and you can get it for your Android device, and essentially what this does is it takes your average, everyday, normal photo that you've taken with your mobile device, and it turns it into something different, turns it into an Instagram. So I got really addicted to Instagram, basically, right? Long story short. And so I started exploring my new environment here, this new city. And as I was sort of making my way through Hong Kong, I started falling in love with this new urban environment, which is frankly a lot different than Atlanta, and new modes of transportation, and new experiences. And I became drawn to, I don't know, this whole new environment for me, and I think this is where I started to realize, like, oh, this is an interesting way for me to document my experiences here, and really I was blown away by the diversity of the city and urban environment. But not only that, I think I immediately fell in love with, I didn't realize when I first moved out here that Hong Kong has so much nature, just 20 minutes in any direction, and you're in the jungle, basically, right? So, and so we can slide to these. I basically, I like to trail run, I like to get out and experience nature, and I discovered that Hong Kong had this incredible beauty. And so I started documenting that and felt that this was, a really amazing experience. But I think my favorite photos, the ones that I like to take the most here in Hong Kong, are the ones that somehow manage to capture the sort of urban environment and where it meets with nature. And so this is kind of what I started to do on Instagram, and people started reacting to these photos, and it was kind of an amazing experience. People started following me, and they started liking these photos, and it became this whole thing that started consuming my everyday activities, where I'm thinking almost every day, okay, what's going to be my next Instagram? And man, mind you, I had like a full-time job and everything else, and I'm doing all this stuff, so more on that later. But of course, Instagram is much, much more than just a way to take photos and share them. And it's actually, so as I started doing this, I became aware of this larger, wider community that was happening. And so I started, basically started trolling the Instagram feed with the slash, or hashtag Hong Kong, and I met these two guys basically in Hong Kong, and we started connecting that way. These were just like two local dudes, and I asked them. I was like, well, I noticed that all around the world, these Insta-meets, as they're called, were starting to pop up in different cities. And I asked these guys, have you ever heard of anyone doing this here? So this is like 2 years ago. And they're like, no. And I was like, well, we should do one. So we started together, we came up with this kind of ridiculous name, Insta. Can't take credit for that, but I've grown to love it. And we said to everybody on Instagram who was following, if you want to meet up and we're going to go on a photo shoot together, then show up. And so we held our very first one, and 14 people showed up. And then a month later, we went to Sham Shui Po. And I think what's interesting about this place is I think as an expat, I don't know that I would have immediately gone to this neighborhood, like right off the bat. In fact, let's be honest, this probably could have been trapped in the mid-levels or central and just like had my whole Hong Kong experience be there. But this is really about the sort of spirit of having these meetups was really three things. One was to go to a new place every time in the city and to make it available for anybody that wants to come. We started basically every month going to a new location. And what was amazing is that the response, like new people were coming. About 20% each time would be brand new visitors to these new events. And then we were like, well, let's have an overnight tram ride. So we we rented one of those trams and we decided to do it this way. And this whole experience became about discovering this new location. And it really just came, for me at least, became this like aha moment, like, oh, this is the way to experience it. I'm meeting new people for the first time. I'm meeting a lot of locals. I mean, the people that I met through these Instagram meetups, this is my introduction into the Dai Pai Dong, right? And to the coagulated pig's blood, and like all of these experiences that like I maybe wouldn't have done on my own, but because I was there with someone who knew, with a local that could share this Hong Kong experience with me, and it just made my whole experience here so much richer. Then we did something completely different. We decided to print our photos and hang them up on the walls, and we did an exhibit. And so we held Hong Kong's first ever Instagram exhibit, and we showed off our prints, and that was really fun. It was a good experience. Anyway, so yeah, sorry, we can go now. We can. So basically, you get the idea, right? We've gone to these new places, and we've become like this roving gang that sort of goes all around Hong Kong and tries to experience in all these new places, and does we make these really crazy group shots, and we pose in very strange ways, and we even brave the elements. So I think so. Who does this, right? What kind of people would do this? So some of them are in this audience, actually. So, and so I have some theories on this, okay, which I'm going to share with you now. One is that these are just my thoughts, right? I think fundamentally the way that photos are shared has changed. Yeah. Obviously, because of mobile technology and smartphones, and I think this is probably something that most of you are experiencing now. And I think also, I believe this. I believe that everyone is a photographer now. Certainly, I'm not a trained professional photographer by any stretch. I've never taken a class, but I definitely have been drawn to this, and I believe that what's so empowering about Instagram really is that you have with your device you have a camera, and essentially through use of filters you have a dark room, and then you have the ability to share it far and wide, not just to people who are in your own social network, but you can also spread it to your other social networks. So in other words, a camera, a darkroom, and a broadcasting mechanism right in your pocket. And so you can see things as I'm experiencing it as at this point, a newcomer to this city, and I can see it, I can take it, and then literally a minute later I can share it with the world. And so, so this old adage, the best camera is the one that you have with you and one that actually fits in your pocket. This was revolutionary for me, and I don't think I'm alone. And I think that you can capture great images with a phone. Although, mind you, normally when you're looking at this, it's on a small device, not on a gigantic LED display. So, and then I think some other things about this phenomenon that I think that's maybe worth pointing out. I think with photos, especially photos, they capture this kind of there's very intimate feeling about capturing something and then immediately sharing it with somebody. And I think that there's this emotional response that happens when you are just looking at an image, and there's something about looking at it on your device that I don't know how to explain it other than you have this emotional response, and certainly that's been my experience. And then I think an image, especially the way that I've experienced it through Instagram, is that images somehow have managed to transcend languages and also transcend borders. And so what I've experienced is basically making friends with people not just here locally, which totally transformed my local experience, but I managed to connect with people from all over the world. And so I'm going to share with you just a few examples. So then, like this guy here, Drew Kelly, this guy was an American, he's 23, and he lives and works in North Korea. And he came to Hong Kong, and he was like, hey, I'm in Hong Kong, let's get together. So this is someone who I've just been looking at his photos for, at this point, a few months, and all of a sudden now he's here in the city, and it felt really natural just to meet this person. And he's not the only one. I had some friends come from San Francisco who were in town, and they just messaged me and were like, here we are. And I think, so this is this whole response of meeting people who you don't know, complete strangers, and then getting together has been this whole new element. And and I'm a huge, this is a band that's I'm very, I love, and one of the members of the band is a complete Instagram fanatic, and so when the band was in town, they were like, hey, let's go hang out, and I barely survived. But that's another presentation. So people were coming to meet me, and I'm hosting these local meetups. So I thought, well, when I go and travel now, I'm going to try and experience this same thing. So I went back to Atlanta, and this is a photo in Atlanta that I didn't take. That's me being kicked. Not really being kicked. But what's interesting about this is that these are people I'd never met before. So I had 10 years of real life experience in Atlanta, and all these people that were really happy that I was back in town, and I chose to hang out with complete strangers. This is not normal behavior. But it was so much fun. And then I went to New York and did the same thing. I met these wonderful people who I didn't previously know, but after spending, in this case, 2 years sort of looking at these daily snapshots of someone's life, the food that they eat, and I know that these people have pets. I know their pets' names. I know the kinds of photos that they like to take, like a bridge shot or a look up, And anyways, I'm hanging out and doing these fun things, and in this case, local New Yorkers taking me to the Brooklyn Bridge. Okay, granted, I probably would have gone there by myself anyway, but here I had these in-place tour guides to let me in and share the experience with, and it's totally, I think, revolutionized travel. At least for me, it has. And so just in the last couple months, I've been back to New York, and I've met people there, and I've been back again to Atlanta, and everywhere I go now, I'm meeting people who I've never met before in real life, but then we do meet in real life, and it ends up being the most incredible experience. And not just that, but I realized that I'm not these experiences that I've been experiencing, these feelings that I'm having towards Instagram, they're not unique. These are actually, it's a shared thing, and that these people that I'm meeting for the first time are really, we have this like common bond, and we can hit it off like right away, and it just makes it really fun. So so obviously I like really buy into Instagram, and so much so that I basically reached out to the people at Instagram and I said, you know what, you should hire me. I want to do this, right? So and unbelievably they agreed. They offered me a job, and so it's incredible. But like I'm going, and you guys are among the first people to hear this. In about a month's time, I'm going to go and work for Instagram. I'm going to be the communications manager for Instagram, which means, in part, that I get to talk about how amazing Instagram is every day. And get paid to do it. And so it's big news. It's going to mean, though, that I'm going to start a new life and a new adventure in San Francisco. So my final thought is this. I just want to say this to you, to the people of Hong Kong, that I guess thank you for making this chapter of my life such an important one, such an amazing experience, and it really it's been a it's been a wonderful road, and I want to thank you for that, and yeah, that's basically it. Thank you very much. I'm going to miss you all.